It was a weekend of very exciting Six Nations rugby, but not everything went according to plan, and that made it even better to watch. The Italy versus Wales game was always going to be a one-sided one. It wasn't long ago where you would have said, yeah, it would have probably gone Wales' way, but the way Italy have been improving and their levels of excitement has just turned them into a wonderful team to watch. They absolutely dominated the game for the most part. And when they were up 22-3, you thought it was done. They're probably going to put up a similar score to what France did against Italy. But Wales had a few other plans, and their defense, much improved from the previous week, helped to actually lay the foundation to get them to actually launch a decent comeback and end at a respectable 22-15. Overall, though, it was still Italy's day. Italy were great, but they took the foot off the pedal. That is something that they would need to correct this next week. The best game of the weekend was actually the one that came in the middle. Nobody thought it was going to be that. When England played France in the past couple of years, you would have always said, no, it's going to be a France win, regardless of whether they played at Twickenham or they played in France. It was always going to be one-sided. Things were a little different though on this day. To be very, very honest, it shouldn't have been the main game. That one was reserved for the Scotland Ireland game that ended the weekend. But it was an amazing game for a couple of different interesting reasons. For the first half an hour, it was a war of attrition, and staying at 0-0, it was only because of the relentless defense that you saw from both sides. The one part that I was exceptionally impressed with about the English side is that they put in a massive effort on every single contact and with every single ball, whether it was on defense or attack, they never let up. And that is something that really, really paid off as the game wore on. On the half hour mark, however, there was a little bit of magic from the French team where they scored from their own half, but 5 minutes later, with an equally well worked try, the English drew level and it went into the half at 7 apiece. At times, England was fairly flawed. They messed up a couple of times when they were in possession, but you could really see that the approach to the game was vastly different from what you saw, especially in last year's Six Nations. You could just see it with the small frame of Finn Smith jumping into rucks as well and trying to affect things in a positive way. But their attitude was vastly different from the team of last year. Something that we hadn't seen from England in forever was a bit of creativity. And I was shocked, but also enjoyed the Freeman try with the little cross kick from Finn Smith. That was spectacular to see. And that added a new kind of a excitement level to the English game. If they can take that structured approach and bring in some of that unpredictability with their creativity, it has got to turn into a very, very interesting Six Nations. But also, England is going to evolve into a much more competitive force in the coming months. As the game wore on, it was back and forth, and it looked like France actually stole it in the 75th minute when they scored, and that they would break English hearts on a day where England were really, really good. But that exceptionally well worked try for that put Daly over the line was a thing of beauty. You could just see Ollie Lawrence already celebrating when they were 10 meters out because he knew what was coming. Could have actually won it earlier and put themselves in an easier position if their kicking was better overall, but that is a small little side note. A very simple difference in the what I thought would have been the main game, the Scotland Ireland game, was that Scotland was the one that dominated the excitement, but it was the Irish team that actually dominated the discipline and the methodical way of playing. Now, at times there was some flair from the Irish side that comes naturally when you actually build up as well as they do. But that is something that has really helped them massively in the past couple of years to gradually overcome any kind of opponent. The way things are going, the Grand Slam looks pretty much sewn up now for them. I don't think there's anybody that's going to challenge them. But if you just look at Prendergast, you can see that he's turning into more and more of a game-changing player for the Irish team. And there are flashes of brilliance coming through. I'd love to see what he looks like in a year or two from now, and I think he's going to turn into an absolute Irish legend based on what he's shown thus far. On the Scotland side, the only thing that actually kept them from doing a lot better was just a couple of exceptionally silly errors. Just have a look at the Duhan van der Merwe yellow card that he got. The push that he gave was just silly. There was no need for it. It was not going to turn into a try for the Irish team, or highly unlikely. And that push got him off the field and very nearly cost them another try. They were lucky to hold up the Irish from that lineup, but it was something that could have been avoided. Scotland, however, put in huge tackles and they brought lots of excitement. What it would have really turned it into something a lot more spectacular for them is if they could take all of the flair and excitement that they brought to the game and added some of the structure that the Irish team had. Just based on a lot more pragmatic approach from the Ireland team, they were able to slowly but surely pull away. And in no time it was 0 for the Scottish and 17 for the Irish team. At that point, it looked like it was kind of done and dusted, but Scotland came back and got it back up to 11-17. Now, if you just have a look at that score, you'd say, well done. It was a good comeback just to get things rolling again. But if you really look at it, the two penalties that they got to take it to 8-17 to 11-17 respectively, both should have been tries, but they messed up the possession and they lost the ball in that last a couple of meters where it could have been avoided. So it should have actually been 18-17 at that point, because they were bringing all of the excitement to it. But once again, as I mentioned a couple of times, that structure let them down. In that whole passage of play, the Duhan van der Merwe finish, however, was absolutely masterful, as it usually is. But there are a few things that Scotland need to look at and try and figure out exactly how they can resolve those issues moving forward. If they can add more structure, they're going to turn into world beaters, to be brutally honest. They don't have the large pool of players. They don't have the massive infrastructure. Clearly, Townsend is busy putting together a team that is becoming better and better with every passing game. And it's honestly the team that I enjoy watching the most out of these Six Nations teams at the moment. If you just have a look at the excitement, if you want to look at a well-rounded overall team, it's definitely still Ireland who lead the pack. Now, just two things kind of in closing. Next up, we've got a couple of interesting matchups. First game is going to be Wales versus Ireland. And I don't think that is going to go any other way than you think it would. A victory actually for Wales would be if they are able to restrict Ireland and keep them down to a score similar to what Ireland achieved against Scotland. If this is a win for Wales, it would be one of the biggest shocks of the past year or two in terms of world rugby. The Calcutta Cup is going to be a very exciting one for a couple of different reasons. The way that England has evolved, the way that they have stepped up in the last week, and the promise that they are showing. They're becoming more exciting, and they have a lot of dimensions to offer now to their game. But when you compare it to Scotland, Scotland has more of that excitement. They have less of the structure. So one side, England, more structured, a little bit of flair. On the other side, Scotland with more flair, a little bit less of the structure. So it depends on which of those teams can improve their weakness a little bit more on the day, and that is probably going to determine the result there. The game that is probably going to be a very weird one to watch would be the Italy versus France game. France are coming off a loss, and they're going to go and play in Italy. Italy is steadily growing in confidence, but they should still be way too much for the Italian team to manage. Just the last little thing that I want to touch on is our power rankings. Those have shifted a little bit. Biggest credit should actually go to the England team for their heroics over the weekend. Still at the top, it is Ireland, but making a big jump from position 4 all the way up to 2, I have to give it to the English. Now sitting in 2, Scotland I would drop down to number 4. France sitting in position 3 because France didn't actually do anything wrong. They were just outplayed on the day by the English side. And then Italy number 5 and Wales number 6. Let's see if there's some interesting changes over the weekend, and then we see this being shaken up again.